Hello everyone, Jayma Malme here, and I have a double page scrapbook layout for you today. I am going to be using the Flower Shop collection. I absolutely love this paper, and it's going to work perfectly with these photos that are from Mother's Day last year. So there are a lot of really beautiful patterns in this collection. As you can see, a lot of florals, but there's also stripes and checks and zigzags and stuff like that. I'm deciding to stick to these ones because I really like how they look with my photos. First of all, this is my very favorite pattern in the pack. And I like that there's a lot of navy. I've got a lot of navy in my photos, but I also have a lot of, well, some of this really bright pink, and I want to have pink in my paper, but I don't want this to stand out too much because it's already really bright. So what I'm going to do is stick with a lot of the neutrals and just bring in pops of the color and stick to these papers. Now I want to talk to you about this background cut right here because that is from one of our digital collections. In Close to My Heart's 3-month catalogs, there is a digital SVG collection for every paper pack. This is the one from the Life's a Hoot collection, and you don't have to use this Life's a Hoot collection or this color combo or anything like that to use these cuts. You can make them whatever color you want, but they are SVGs, so you can use them with Cricut or Silhouette or any other die cutting machine that works with SVGs. So there's this scrapbook layout here, and there's some cards, and there's some individual elements here, but just know that the scrapbook layout, it comes in totally pre-designed. So this comes into your mat as one image all grouped together, so you can just cut it as a scrapbook layout if you want, and it's all done for you. You just have to cut it. You can change the colors to work for your layout if you want as well. So try not to let like the purple or other colors hinder your creativity. You can make it match whatever you want, and you can take away the owls or whatever. What I did was I just used this background piece and I deleted everything else before I cut. So all I'm using from that digital collection are these two background pieces that I cut with Sapphire. I've also brought in the embellishments that go with Flower Shop. There's a lot of really pretty titles. These are like paperboard pieces, In Bloom, Memories, and then there's also this All Smiles and Beautiful, so some good title options. And then I really love these acrylic shapes, and I think I'm going to use this Best Day acrylic shape. And I'll have to figure out how to do that because I don't want it getting lost on my page here. But this was just such a fun day. We went for Mother's Day where I wanted to go to this cider place that has amazing views of the mountains and an outdoor place for the kids to run around. And my husband and I could just relax in the Adirondack chairs. They could play cards. It just really was perfect. So I'm pretty sure I'm going to use this, and I'll probably bring in some of these other little embellishments as well. There's also a sticker sheet that comes with that Flower Shop collection, so I do have these as options, but I definitely want to use stamps because I have some stamps that I know are going to look good. First of all is this one, this Floral Blooms stamp set. There's a matching die for every single one of them, and I was looking at this layout that I created a few months ago, and I just shared this past week in my layout share that I showed of all kinds of stamping ideas. And I really like how I stamped these and, stamped them onto the different colors of paper. This one has rock and roll. And so I brought this out, or kept it out, I guess, from that layout share because I wanted to kind of replicate some of these flowers and use them on this layout. So I've also got this Summer Bucket List stamp set, which is exclusive just in the stamp sale that's going on this month, March 2023. And I really liked this one up here that says Family Time, so I think I'm going to use that. Most of these other ones have to do with outdoor activities, which if you follow my channel, you know we do a lot of outdoor activities, so I definitely had to have this stamp set. And then I also am going to bring in this one because I'm pretty sure I'm going to use this rainbow. In fact, I found a rainbow that was colored already in my stash, so I'm going to try to make work, and I'm going to show you how to recolor it because the colors don't exactly work. And then I'll probably be throwing in some of these layered flowers from this die. This is one of my absolutely favorite dies ever. I think I'm going to use these leaves, maybe some of the flowers as well. So we'll do a combo of all this kind of stuff and have some fun. So let's go ahead and dive in. Okay, so this is pretty much the arrangement I think I want my photos, and I have this one already cut. So I'm thinking what I'm gonna do is kind of stick it up under here, and whatever I'm covering of this background, I'm gonna trim off so that I can use it on another project. I don't think I want this whole thing on there. I think I want it to come down a little bit more, maybe like that. And then I have this zip strip that came off of one of the other papers. It's just the manufacturing strip. So it'll be kind of like this. And then I think I want to repeat that over here. So I'll cut a little bit of this paper. Although maybe I want to do another skinny strip. I might do like a 1-inch strip of this. We'll try that out. But I think I'm liking this over here. And these photos, I want it to be wide enough so that these photos still show this in the background quite a bit. So maybe about like that. All right, so I'm liking that so far. Now I've already matted my photos in white, but I definitely want to have more of a matte. That green could work. It kind of brings out the green in the trees, but it is pretty bright. Whoops, I put the wrong thing aside. That doesn't do anything for me. It doesn't really make the photo pop. This is going to be just tone on tone of what's in the background, but I do like this on there. And then we've got this color. I do like that on the background, but it's a little bit bright next to here, I think. What if I double matte this? I know it seems a little bit crazy, but I do double matte my photos quite a bit just because I want the pop of both of the colors. But I do like that better. I like the pop of the raspberry back there, but I didn't like it right up against the photo. I like that buffer of the neutral sapphire in between. So I think I'm going to actually double matte all of my photos, and that's really going to draw attention to the photos, which is what I want, of course. I want my photos to stand out, and we will have quite a bit of bold pattern on here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then we'll see how that looks.
Ooh, I really like that. I even was able to save some of that zip strip since I didn't have any more zip strips like this, and some of that background. And I'm going to arrange my photos like this so that I can have my title up in that top left. And then over on this side, I actually saved the background behind the photos since the double matte makes them go above and below the background. And then you'll notice I added that 1-inch strip of the blue and white flowered paper as well. Now I'm going to start on my stamping, and I'm bringing in this layout just to see which stamps I want to use. I think I'm pretty much going to use the same ones. I am bringing out 4 because I was thinking I wanted to use a different one, but I wasn't really liking it after all. So you can use the foam that comes in the stamp sets. Close to My Heart stamp sets come with a little foam piece that I showed you, or you can work on the back of your Versamat, which is what I'm doing here. I have a lot of Versamats because I sometimes have multiple projects going on at once, and I like to have a Versamat behind all of my layouts. So I do have a third Versamat here just for my stamping, and I'm going to do some rock and roll stamping. So I'm stamping it in the lighter color first, which is the Flamingo. Then we will gently roll it in the darker raspberry color around the edges and stamp it onto our paper. And that didn't come out quite as solid as I was hoping, so let's try that again. We're going to stamp it into the Flamingo, get that dog hair off, and make sure we've got really good coverage, and then we will roll it into the raspberry. And I'm going to hold it down here just for a second longer, make sure that that ink really soaks into the paper. That looks much better. I stamped some leaves and some other flowers off camera and cut them all out. The blue is Capri ink rolled in Sapphire. Now I'm starting to think about my title. I found this fancy bracket die and it fits the Best Day title perfectly. So I'm thinking I might use that sapphire pattern paper to back it and make it stand out. I'm not quite sure about it yet, so I'm just going to leave it there and think about it. Now I'll work on arranging all of these flowers. Now I fuss with flower arrangement a lot when I am working on my clusters, so I'm going to show you some of it, but then it ends up changing and moving around off screen as well too. But basically I start with the biggest pieces first. So I've got the biggest flowers, and those are the pink stamped flowers. And then I brought in a couple colors of flowers from that layered flowers die set I showed you earlier. The Sapphire is actually that same patterned paper that's under the title, because I didn't want the title to be the only place that that pattern paper appears. So I'm going to try to work it into some other areas as well. Now, as I'm doing this, I'm realizing that these flowers are sort of blending into that background pattern paper since it is pretty busy. So I'm trying to put some leaves around the bottom to sort of differentiate the flower cluster from the background. And that helps a little bit. I end up later going back and cutting some more white glitter paper, which is what those leaves are in, which looks really beautiful and sparkly in person, by the way. It's hard to tell on camera. But I cut more of those single flowers that I have only in green here in the white glitter and put them around the bottom, which helps a little bit. And then I'm also going to come in later and kind of curl up the edges and add some inking around the edges, which you'll see in a bit. And that helps to differentiate a little bit too. It does still blend in with the background a little bit, but in the end, I am totally okay with it. I really like how it turned out. So over on this right side, I am again working with those larger flowers, trying to get those down first, and then coming in with the smaller flowers, and I'm gonna again fuss with them quite a bit. These layered flowers you can layer in so many different ways, so I did try those out lots of different ways before I decided on how they're actually gonna stay. As I'm arranging the flowers, I'm also trying to keep in mind the colors and making sure all of the colors are evenly spread out throughout the layout so that your eye is drawn across the page. Now here is that rainbow that I pointed out. The pink is not quite bright enough. The green is a different color green, so I'm going to try to recolor those in a little bit. And I'm going to add my third cluster up here in this title area. So I usually try to have sort of 3 cluster areas to create a visual triangle. It doesn't always have to work out that way, but a lot of times the visual triangle really helps draw your eye across the page and make sure everything's balanced. So just gonna keep playing with all of these leaves. I'm tucking the leaves first because those are gonna be my bottom layer. And at this point, I think I'm gonna have some flowers, but I'm not gonna have any of the bigger flowers. So here I'm gonna tuck in one of those smaller stamped flowers and then realize I haven't tucked any of these stamped flowers into any of the clusters, these pink ones. So I'm gonna tuck those around all of the other clusters as well. So some of the pink flowers are one style and a couple are another. So I'm going to tuck a couple down in that cluster and then one over here. And even though I have 4, I have them represented in the 3 different clusters. So add another leaf here. And I'm thinking now at this point that I have this cluster too far over to the right. I think I'm going to move that over closer to the photos a little bit. And I think that that's going to help with the blending into the background a little bit too, because more of the cluster will be on top of that more pink and blue and white strip that I have, and then overlapping the photos just a bit. If you're enjoying this video, I would love it if you hit that thumbs up button so YouTube knows. And if you haven't already subscribed, you can hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss any upcoming videos. I do post scrapbooking videos every week. Now I've added some of those acrylic pieces from the embellishment pack, and I like that texture that it adds to the layout, and I'm probably going to add more as well. Now here I'm also going to start that sponging around the edges. I'm using a sponge dauber. You can use any type of sponge tool that you have. And I'm going around tone on tone, so I'm adding some avocado ink around the edges of the avocado leaves, and those are going to create some added dimension and texture, visual texture to those leaves and help them pop some more. I'm going to go around all of the cardstock pieces that are in a colored cardstock. I'm not going around the flowers that are stamped in onto white paper, just the ones stamped onto colored cardstock. And I really like how much extra dimension this adds. And then when I'm done, I'll go and add some dimension with my fingers by kind of rolling the petals and the leaves with my thumb to give them some extra lift. And I'll show you a little bit of that. Now, this piece right here was still just a little bit too like dark and stark against everything else. So I'm adding a little bit of a distressed look with a nail file. This is just a regular nail file, and I'm going around the edges to sand off some of that color and make it look a little distressed, and that helps to lighten it up just a little bit. And now that I'm doing it to this piece, I want to do it to all of the pieces that are cut out of this paper. So I'm going to go back and do that to all of the flowers that are cut in this paper as well. And then I wanted to still ink around the edges just so that it matches all of the other pieces that are cut out of a colored cardstock. So I'm liking how this is looking. I'm going to go ahead and finish this one up, and then I'll do all of the other flowers the same way off screen. Yes, that's much better. So I'm going to start putting the background down. I just kind of put a little dot of glue in all of those little intersections, so you don't have to put a lot of glue. I do like the Barely Art glue because it does have the fine point tip, and I just really like the glue. So that's what I use for most of my gluing when I need to have a fine point. And then I'll go ahead and get all of these other pieces down here. For all of these bigger pieces, I'm using my ATG adhesive roller. I know a lot of you guys use this adhesive roller, and if you're not already familiar with Tape Jungle, that's where I get my refills. They're super, super inexpensive. You can buy them by the case, and sometimes I will share a case with friends, and it's like $1.25 a roll or something. It's not the Scotch brand, but it is acid-free, and it's really good. If you don't have an ATG roller, they're awesome. They take a little bit of getting used to. There's a little bit of a learning curve, but the refills are way cheaper and they last longer over one of the other rollers. I know a lot of people just don't like having the big roller, and that's totally fine. I just thought I would point it out. I do have the ATG linked down in my description below, as well as all of the other supplies I'm using. It's available on Amazon, so I have that one linked. So here is a peek at one of the brand new stamp sets that's coming out in the April through June catalog. It's called Our Mom, and I just thought it was so sweet, and of course perfect to put on this Mother's Day layout. I'm doing some masking, so I had my masking tape covering the bottom section of the stamp, and now I'm going to clean that top, and then I will mask the top section where it says Mother and has the little hearts so I can stamp it in a different color. Now you could always cut your stamps. That is something that I do quite often, but I wanted to keep this one intact. And so I will just peel off that masking tape, and then I'll line up the stamp and stamp it again. So then I have two colors for this stamp, and that looks really good. So I'm using this slimline stitched border die, and I will just have it hang off the edge. I did actually rip it a tiny bit when I lifted up my tape that was holding it in place. So I'm going to hide that rip rather than doing this all over again with a little leaf and another little acrylic piece. I'm going to try out this arrow, but I'm just not feeling it here. So I'm going to pull out this collection. This was from an older like summer collection, and there's these little tiny pink hearts in the same color as the Flower Shop collection, the Flamingo. So I'm going to add a little heart here, just decide exactly where it's going to go. And then there's another heart in that little collection too, and this flower. I don't end up using the flower because it just kind of blends in too much. I'm going to try it in a few places, but it doesn't do anything. It just blends into that background. So rather than waste it, I'm going to save it for another project. But I do like this other little heart, and it's going to end up right by the title. Now that I've got most of my clusters glued down, I'm going to show you how I give these leaves a little lift. I just kind of pinch it between my fingers and roll it onto my thumb, and that lifts the ends. I just put glue under the base of the leaves. That way I can add that dimension around the edges. And I did the same thing to the flowers as well. Now I haven't glued down the top left yet because I'm still going to play with this rainbow. I really like the way that it looks up in that title cluster, but I'm going to do a little bit of recoloring here like I mentioned. I use the SpectrumNoir Triblend markers, and I find having a swatch sheet like this is very helpful. You can find one similar on SpectrumNoir's website, but I have all my colors swatched so I can see which colors will match my paper the best. For this one, I decided to go over that outside rainbow ring with the magenta. I'm using the dark around the bottom, and then I will go to the medium and then to the light. I'm going to fast forward this quite a bit because I am definitely not a professional colorist, but I wanted to just kind of show you the process. I'm going right over the color that was already there, and you can see how it is getting brighter and more like the hot pink than the sort of more pale pink that I had originally. I originally used the pale pink shades and blend. And now for the green, I'm using the citrus green blend, and then I'm adding just a tiny bit of the alpine green in the end as well. Just the light color of the alpine green is very limey, and just going right over that more turquoisey green, and you can see how that is coloring as well. Now I did end up restamping and coloring this rainbow all over again, but wanted to show you that it is possible to recolor over some colors that you already had down. I wanted to change that purple arch that was on the bottom to blue, so I didn't think I could do the lighter blue very well over purple, so I just ended up redoing it. And the blue is mostly ice blue with a little bit of true blue blend mixed in. And then I went over the clouds with the clear shimmer brush, and hopefully you can see how beautiful and shiny that is. It makes such a nice difference. There are a few stickers on the sticker sheet that I ended up using. Now, they do blend into that background just a little bit, but I did like this pop of blue and white that they added to my clusters and kind of beefed them up a little bit. So definitely something that's optional. You don't have to, but I decided to use them. There's also a little bit of UV coating to some of the stickers, so they have a little bit of shine, which is fun. There is a sticker with a little journaling box, and I definitely wanted to add that in, just trying to decide where. I do like it kind of sticking out of this cluster here, which does help to differentiate that cluster from the background paper a little bit more. I'm going to layer just a couple of little flowers here to anchor the bottom of that journal box. I had half of this stamped image that I'm going to add. I used the other half up in the top left by the title. And then I added another little bracket of that sapphire pattern paper to draw that down across the page. I decided at the last minute to add some splatter to that background paper. I just added it to the background paper to add a little bit more white contrast to that darker paper. I'm using the gloss spray from Dina Wakley, which is really awesome. I love that it sits on top of the paper and has a glossy finish, so it won't soak into the paper like a lot of splatters do. I'm working on my all-purpose mat so that I don't make a mess, because I've tended to do that lately. Nothing sticks to that all-purpose mat. It's awesome, and it's got a silicone backing so it doesn't slide around. Let's take a closer look at how this turned out. I love all the visual interest. We have lots of dimension and different textures and shine. I just love it. If you want to see still shots of how everything turned out, I've got them on Instagram and Facebook. You can find those linked down in the description below, as well as all of the supplies I used. Don't forget the stamp sale is going on in March 2023. If you want to see the process for the layout I shared earlier, check out this video that I have on screen right now. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.